The following public affairs presentation is produced exclusively for the Cox Channel. And now, The Verdict.
Welcome to The Verdict. I'm Kent Myers, and to my right is my brother, Stewart Meyers, who is serving as co-host in Mick Cornett's absence for last week, this week, and the next 2 weeks. Stewart, sure glad to have you back. Really appreciate your help.
Thank you, Kent. Pleasure for me to be here.
Well, I've always been guided by my, well, I shouldn't say older brother, but I will, my older brother, and glad you'll help us guide us through these shows. Today we're going to be talking about what's going on in Tulsa.
Well, I think that that's a very timely topic because a lot of effort has been made in Tulsa recently, and I think Steve Turnbo, our guest, will really bring a lot of light to what is really going on in Tulsa.
Well, there's some really positive developments going on over there. We're going to find out about it. We have a large Tulsa audience, and we sure hope that you in Tulsa will enjoy what we're presenting, and our Oklahoma City audience, we think you'll enjoy the subject as well. With Stewart Meyers, you're watching The Verdict. We're going to be talking about what's going on in Tulsa. We'll see you back in just a few minutes.
At Chesapeake Energy, here's a few of our favorite Hornets. Alexis likes reading. Sam enjoys history. Alec loves math. Chesapeake is proud to support both the Oklahoma City NBA Hornets and the Young Hornets at Horace Mann Elementary, where over 150 Chesapeake employees mentor to children each week. The students gain a lot from the experience, but not as much as we do. Chesapeake Energy, committed to building a better Oklahoma.
I'm Dave Bialis. Coming up this month on Generally Speaking, the state of Oklahoma turns 100 years old. Find out about the celebrations, special events, and commemorative festivities that will help this great state cap off 100 years.
So all in all, there's going to be over 600 events during the year, of starting with Tulsa and ending November 16, 2007 at the Ford Center.
That's Generally Speaking, found only on the Cox Channel.
Here's the pitch. Line drive on there. The Cardinals won the pennant. The Cardinals win. That's a winner. A World Series winner for the Cardinals.
Oh, an unbelievable catch. Swing and a miss. Get up, baby. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Home run.
Your slice of Cardinals heaven can be found on the Cox Channel all season long.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Myers with my co-host, brother Stewart Meyers. And on my left is our guest, Steve Turnbo. Steve is the chairman of the Tulsa Metro Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. He's a graduate of the University of Tulsa. He is the chairman of Schnocky Turnbo Agency, Public Relations and Advertising in Tulsa. He is a trustee of the University of Tulsa, is on the board of directors of the Gilcrease Museum in Tulsa, and is active in many civic and cultural activities in Tulsa. He's been kind enough to drive the turnpike today to come join us and tell us what's going on in Tulsa. This is his first visit, but I certainly hope it is not his last. Welcome, Steve.
Well, Kent, Stewart, happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me over. Looking forward to visiting today.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve, for coming. And I know that the chamber duties take a lot of your time,
They do.
But also, Snocky Turnbo takes a great deal of your time. Tell us about that firm. What you
Well, it's Snocky Turnbo Frank, and I'm fortunate to have a great CEO, Becky Frank, who just spent a year as president of Leadership Oklahoma, and Becky's our CEO. And when we talked about this a year ago when I was asked to chair the chamber, we sat down and knew that it would take 4 or 5 hours a day of chamber work. So I've got a great staff and a great associates over there that are helping us at the PR firm. We are a general PR firm. There's 14 of us. We were founded in 1970 by Chuck Snocky, who still works 3 days a week as chairman emeritus. And we do the full gamut of PR services, except we do not do political candidates, but we do political issues. We've run Tulsa Public School bond issues, third penny sales tax issues, and we actually ran the PR component of the Vision 2025 election in Tulsa 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, which, as you know, has led to a lot of positive developments for the city and the region.
The let's focus a little bit on your chamber duties. Kind of generally, you mentioned it takes a few hours a day, but what kind of things do you do as chairman of the chamber?
Well, I show up at a lot of meetings and open sessions and things of that nature, but this year's been a little unusual and a little different because we had a search for a new chief executive officer. And we spent the last 3.5 months working with a national search firm and a search committee. And 2 weeks ago, we were pleased to announce that Mike Neal, who was the president of the Nashville Chamber, is joining us as our CEO in Tulsa. In fact, he has already started, bought him a home, and we're pleased to have Mike Neal on board. That took a lot of time. 4 major components with the Tulsa Metro Chamber. The one that most people always think about is economic development. Jobs, jobs, jobs. But there's also the convention and visitors portion of that. We're building a new arena. We're renovating our convention center, thanks to Vision 2025. Then we have the Legislative Affairs Division, as well as the Community Betterment, which is education and social services. So those 4 components take up a lot of my time, meetings and setting direction and policy.
Well, you mentioned the convention center. Would you like to elaborate on that as well as other projects that are going on in Tulsa?
When we embarked on Vision 2025, and I really think we have Oklahoma City to thank for the passage of Vision 2025, MAPS was a remarkable achievement in Oklahoma City, and we studied that, and we had tried 2 times previously, and the voters weren't there with us. But the last time, I think the stars were lined up correctly, and we made it a regional effort. Each of the surrounding communities had projects in the package, and the voters said yes, and they said yes overwhelmingly. We're building, of course, the big headline grabber is the 18,000-seat Bank of Oklahoma Center arena, which should be completed in the fall of 2007, as well as the renovation of the convention center itself.
Let me ask you about that arena. Where is it going to be located?
It's located right downtown Tulsa on Denver Avenue, just next to the federal building, and it's coming out of the ground, and Tulsans are pretty proud of that. But I credit Oklahoma City and your leadership for helping us get that done in Tulsa.
Well, we appreciate that and wish the best of luck to Tulsa. The convention center is going to go a long way. You also have a new mayor, Mayor Kathy Taylor, and what impact does her election have on the way the city is going?
The new mayor, Kathy, has done a great job in her first 125 days as mayor. And one of the things that I'm pleased to see is that she's working with not only our chamber, but all other departments and all other agencies that are involved in economic development, bringing them all into the room, and we're working together to make sure we don't have a right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing issue. And we're going to focus on jobs. And we just finished our Tulsa's Future campaign, again modeling ourselves after what Oklahoma City has done. And Roy Williams and the group over at the Oklahoma City Chamber, we raised $9 million for our economic development fund designed to create jobs. So it's all about jobs, but it's also about convention and visitors. social services, quality education, and a pro-business legislative agenda.
Well, I hope you'll put in a good word with my former partner, Kathy Taylor, and tell her she needs to appear on the verdict. We've got an invitation out to her.
Well,
twist her arm, will you?
I'd be a bad PR guy if I didn't suggest to the mayor that she come over here and do a TV show.
Well, let me ask you, there was a good bit of publicity a couple of years ago, it may have been not quite that long ago, about intra-commission, city commission squabbles, recall elections, and the like. That, of course, gets all the press, and all the good things that go on seem to be pushed to the background. But I sense that that's kind of calmed down now.
It has calmed down, and it was not a good time to move projects forward. We did have some issues going on between the 11th floor, the mayor's office, and the city council office. And when you have that kind of squabbling going on, it's hard to move projects forward. I'm happy to say that does not appear to be the case now, and we've got some agendas that are moving forward. So we're pleased with the way, from a chamber perspective, the way our 11th floor and the way City Council is conducting the citizens' business.
There's been a perception in years past that I've always found somewhat credible, but never understood how it developed. But I've heard a lot of people say, gosh, Tulsa and Oklahoma City are like Dallas and Fort Worth, with Dallas or Tulsa being a little bit more of the cultural center, perhaps a little bit more sophisticated than the cow towns of Oklahoma City and Fort Worth. Do you, as a fellow in the PR business, recognizing you're here in Oklahoma City for this taping, I sense there's some truth to that, but what's the history of that? Why is it that way?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do historically with the fact that Tulsans didn't, in my view, participate in the legislative process. They weren't over here. They didn't have a clear understanding, in my view, of civics. I think in the last 20 years, the Tulsa business community has had a greater understanding of how important civics is, and that the legislature can do things that can be harmful to business and harmful to a city like Oklahoma City and Tulsa moving forward. As a result, we found ourselves, I believe, working closer together to improve that. But I think historically it goes back to Tulsans sort of had the mindset of we'll just do it ourselves. That's not a realistic approach. But I'm happy to say that there are a group of 5 or 6 business leaders from Oklahoma City and from Tulsa, and we meet regularly over here and over in Tulsa to talk about common issues where we can work together.
Steve, excuse me, I want to get back to that when we come back, but we need to get to a break right now to take care of our sponsors. You're watching Steve Turnbo, the chairman of the Tulsa Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce, with my co-host Stewart Meyers. We'll be right back.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of the verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB, and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
Brad and I invite you to join us at the Governor's Mansion for September Fest. We're excited about hosting this free festival with our presenting sponsor, the Oklahoma State Medical Association. We'll have games, music, face painting, the Cuddly Centennials, fish from the Oklahoma Aquarium, and more.
Bring a picnic lunch or enjoy great food from the many vendors on Northeast 23rd Street.
The Governor's Mansion will be open for tours all day.
And the Oklahoma History Center across the street will offer free admission.
Make plans to join us at September Fest.
Just keep it. Thank you. Dr. Kessler? What's up with the pizzas?
Well, I just got my first satellite bill, and those extra fees were a bit of a shocker. So I had to take a second job.
Hey, this was supposed to be pepperoni, dillweed.
Hey, it's Dr. Dillweed to you.
Whatever.
Kids. It's cool. I'm a people person.
Don't live in satellite denial. Get all your entertainment without the hidden charges from Cox, your friend in the digital age.
And we're back with Steve Turnbo, chairman of the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, and my co-host, my brother, Stewart Meyers. We're visiting about what's going on in Tulsa. I had to interrupt you, and I once again apologize for doing it to get us to a break, but you were talking about intercity cooperation between Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Could you finish up on that?
Yes, be happy to, Kent. In the last, since I became chairman in January, and even last year, we have been having meetings with the Oklahoma City Chamber, some of their leaders, as well as the State Chamber and some of their leaders, working with Roy Williams and Dick Rush and our staff in figuring out how we can work together on common issues. Oklahoma City and Tulsa generally agree on about 95% of the issues that we go forward to the legislature with. Now there's some we're not going to agree on, but by and large 95% of them we're pretty much in the same camp. And that's also true of the State Chamber, which is, as you know, a legislative agenda, but it's 99% pro-business. So we have these meetings and we talk about how we can work together on appropriations for higher education funding, how we can work together to go to the legislature. If you take the metropolitan population of Oklahoma City and the metropolitan population of Tulsa, that becomes actually the largest. That's the largest population of the state. And if you take those two legislative, the reps and the senators, if we work together, we're able to impact and have positive legislation pro-business for both Oklahoma City and Tulsa. And if Oklahoma City and Tulsa, in our view, are doing well, then the rest of the state should be doing well as well. And that's how we approach this. And it's a very healthy relationship. Fred Hall has been involved, Larry Nichols. A number of people from Oklahoma City show up at these meetings, David Thompson from Oklahoma Publishing Company, and we work together to find common goals so that we can approach the legislature and have pro-legislation.
Well, that is terrific. We've talked a little bit about the arena going up in Tulsa. You might visit with us a little more about that, but also I'd be interested in other new facilities that you see for the city of Tulsa in the future.
Well, we're pleased to report that OSU Tulsa, Oklahoma State University Tulsa, their campus is right downtown, is building a new research center. It's the Helmrich Research Center, and that should be completed within the year. Very excited about that. And then OU Tulsa, the University of Oklahoma Tulsa, out at the 41st and Yale campus, is just completing an instruction facility, a classroom instruction building. Those two buildings are really important to our overall menu of higher educational opportunities in Tulsa. We have a wonderful community college, Tulsa Community College. We have 4 campuses, northeast, downtown, and then north, west, and south. And we have 22,000 students at Tulsa Community College. And then, of course, we have the Oral Roberts University, the University of Phoenix, and then the University of Tulsa, which is a private university and is sort of the crown jewel in my view, of higher education for that region.
You mentioned that you're meeting with people from the State Chamber and the City Chamber on legislative matters. What would you outline as the 3 or 4 major legislative goals for this upcoming session after the first of the year?
Well, probably first on the Tulsa Metro Chamber list, and I would guess it would be the same in Oklahoma City and the State Chamber, would be tort reform. We are vitally interested in some meaningful tort reform because that is an issue that when we're trying to attract out-of-state companies to come here and locate, it's an issue that gets mentioned, and it gets mentioned by those who are also here. That's one. A second issue is to create more incentives to attract industry to the state, and we think that I do need to applaud the legislature many years ago for the Quality Jobs Act. I believe the Quality Jobs Act has had a major impact on this state and has allowed us to bring in some major industries and has proven beneficial. Last session, the Oklahoma City Chamber, the State Chamber, and the Tulsa Chamber, all three took a position in opposition to Tabor. Now, there were certain people in the Tulsa region who were not real pleased with that stance, but we felt that that particular proposal was not in the best interest for the long term of the state of Oklahoma. And I was pleased to see the three chambers work together in opposition to that.
Do you see the balance of power in the Senate perhaps shifting to the Republicans after this election, having any impact on the ability to get your legislative priorities passed?
Well, historically, pro-business legislation has been Republican. What we tend to do at the Tulsa Metro Chamber is approach the legislature not from an R, D, or I standpoint, but from the standpoint of, will you help us put laws into effect that can help us create jobs and create opportunities for all of Oklahoma. We try not to get too partisan. I personally believe that the Senate will probably flip this fall. And it will, therefore, we'll have a House that is Republican and a Senate Republican. And so I think that you normally get more pro-business legislation out of a Republican-dominated House or Senate, but that's not always the case.
You mentioned the crown jewel of educational institutions in Tulsa, Tulsa University. Could you speak to the relationship between the City of Tulsa and the University of Tulsa?
Be happy to do that. And let me say this, because I got a lot of friends at OSU Tulsa, a lot of friends at Tulsa Community College, Richard Roberts at Oral Roberts University. TU is my alma mater, so I probably have a little bias there. But we are very pleased. You know, Oklahoma City and Tulsa have a lot in common when it comes to offerings in higher ed. We have a great community college, OSU Tulsa, OU Tulsa, Oral Roberts University, and the University of Tulsa. But the University of Tulsa has a remarkable academic standing, and U.S. News and World Report listed us as the 90th best university in America last year. There are 2,200 colleges and universities in the country. And so the university is, we have students from all 50 states and many foreign countries. It's just a vital part of the community. What's great is President Stead Upham is working with Gary Trenopole at OSU, Dr. Jerry Clancy at OU, and Dr. Tom McKeon at Tulsa Community College. A lot of collaboration going on for research and joint projects that can create jobs for Tulsa. But the University of Tulsa, founded in 1894, has been a real mainstay of the community. When I'm in New York, Chicago, or LA, and someone says, tell me about Tulsa in 90 seconds, I usually say there are three things in Tulsa that I consider world class. One is Gilcrease Museum. Second is Southern Hills Golf Course. And the third is the University of Tulsa School of Petroleum Engineering. And so that's sort of how I lead in about Tulsa.
I've got to take us to another break and terminate our conversation, at least for now. We want you to know you're always invited back, Steve, and I hope that you'll join us again in the future. We've been watching, you've been listening to Steve Turnbo, the chairman of the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, talking about what's going on in Tulsa. And there are a lot of exciting things, and when they develop more fully, come back and tell us more, will you?
I'd be happy to.
Well, for my brother, we're pleased that you joined us. You're watching The Verdict. We'll be right back.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
You need this one to get satellite HD. This one's your DVR. This one's for local channels. This one's...
What are we supposed to do with all this stuff?
Got you covered. Oh, by the way, that old satellite stuff makes a great end cable.
That doesn't look so bad, right, honey?
Don't live in satellite denial. Get the latest entertainment without the hassles from Cox, your friend in the digital age.
I'm Chris Paul. And I'm Dave Biales with some of our friends from the Boys and Girls Clubs in Oklahoma. Growing up is tough. Everyone needs a fun and safe place to learn and grow.
Boys and Girls Clubs offer programs that instill a sense of pride, purpose, and belonging. Club kids have grown up to become movie stars and, yes, even basketball legends.
We hope you'll join Cox, Oklahoma in supporting the Boys and Girls Club.
Get involved with your local club today because it truly is
a wonderful place for kids.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Myers with my co-host, Brother Stewart Meyers. We were pleased that Steve Turnbo joined us. He is, as you know, chairman of the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce. And his website is www.tulsachamber.com. By the way, check into our website, theverdict.tv, and let us know what you'd like to see. A lot going on in Tulsa.
Oh, a lot going on, and Steve describes it in great terms.
The way he does indeed, and he's a great spokesman for the Tulsa Chamber and for the Tulsa community. We are looking forward to seeing you next week when we'll have Carrie Pettingill with the Homeland Security Office on. You're watching The Verdict. Thanks for joining us.
The preceding program was produced by the Production Services Group at Cox Communications, exclusively for the Cox Channel.